the topic today. Are you ready?
Yes.
Have you prepared yourself
Yes.
to receive the word of God?
Yes.
Well, I hope my words are from God. But this is a topic. Life lessons. Life lessons. So, as you know, I recently celebrated my 70th birthday. And when you reach that age and beyond, then you have a lot to look back on life. So then I was thinking, okay, what have I learned in my life up to now? It's not over, but still I'm learning. And then, we go back to childhood. So look at your own childhood. What did you learn in your childhood that has stayed with you? Because it's like childhood is the foundation, it's the beginning. And so if you were born into our movement, and you young people, then, what were your parents teaching you through their example and through, their lifestyle and their beliefs? And from that childhood, what has stayed with you? And for the older ones amongst us, childhood's a long time ago. But still, are you here today because of your childhood? Or what happened in your childhood has influenced your whole path in life? So, if I was to ask you, okay, have you learned anything in your life? Is there one thing that stands out that you've learned that's so important? Or maybe, yes, someone say something?
Yeah, how to make tea properly.
How to make tea properly. Some people, it's the practical life. It's kind of the daily life, how to live, how to survive a day. So, but then it's good to reflect. And I've been doing this a lot over the last, few years. And, or maybe I was to ask you, are there 3 lessons in your life that you've really learned that have kind of helped you to be where you are today? Or can you count more than 3? Well, I could count many, but I've decided that I would count 10. I would share with you 10 lessons I've learnt. And we may think when we look in the mirror, I'm not so special. I'm just a normal person. Would you agree? When you look in the mirror, do you think you're special?
Yes.
Good, yeah. So it's both. It's both like, I'm no better than anybody else because every one of us is a child of God. Yes? So I can't say that Felix is better than me. No. And I can't say that I'm better than Felix. We're all special. We're all unique. God dwells in each one of us. So, as I reflect upon my ordinary life or my special life, what is it that stands out that I could share with you that may have some resonance with you, may help you to reflect upon your own life and what you have learnt? So let's go back. So the founder of our movement is the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, or as we call him, True Father. And so the question is, what would he say is the central philosophy of the Family Federation? Again, if I ask you in your mind, I'm not asking you to call out, but if you were to think, what are we all about? What's the main point? What do you think? What would you say? And what would Father say? So let's listen to what Father says. He says this: the central philosophy we uphold in the Family Federation is to live for the sake of others. If you do so, you will become the center. Without the process of living for each other, there will be no peace in the family. And if you cannot build peace in your family, there can be no peace among your people, no peace in your nation, and no peace in the world. This is to tell you to live centered on a realm of love for the entire world. This will absolutely be the foundation for peace among humankind. So our movement is all about peace, but it starts within us. And when we live for others, this is true love, giving without expecting anything in return. If that is our central philosophy, and this is the foundation for our family, and then that's the foundation for the society, the nation, the whole world. So that's what we're about. But it all starts from living for the sake of others. And the question is, how do we live for the sake of others? Again, if I ask you, what do you think? You don't need to call out. But how do you live for the sake of others? Actually, how do we put it into practice? I'm sure you've got some answer in your head. Or how have you up to your life? You know, if you've been in this Family Federation all these years and this is the central philosophy, I suppose you've been trying your very best to do that. So what does Father say? This is what he says. When God created Adam and Eve, he gave them the 3 blessings. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth and have dominion over every living thing. The first blessing, be fruitful, means that human beings should grow and perfect their characters with God as their center. The second blessing is that a perfected man and woman should become a true husband and wife, have children, and realize an ideal family, thus fulfilling their duty as true parents. The third blessing is that human beings should create the kingdom of heaven on earth, where they would not experience any inconvenience or lack and the environment that God bestowed upon them. So God gave us 3 blessings. By fulfilling them, we are actually practicing living for the sake of others. We are embodying our godly nature by living for others, by being good human beings, developing our character. And that multiplies in the family. And, of course, to build a world of peace, God gave us the earth and gave us creativity, and so that we can create a comfortable living environment. So, of course, we have diagrams. So I'd like to kind of go through these diagrams so we can kind of see it a bit more clearly. So, for example, the first blessing, the perfection of individuality, where the mind and body are united, centered upon God, this creates an ideal person, where there's no disharmony. And actually, the mind is the subject over the body. So the mind, which is connected to God, which wants to be good and kind and loving, our body should unite so that we can serve and help each other. But what's important is that God is the center. When we talk about the 3 blessings, we talk about a God-centered individual. And then we talk about a God-centered family, the perfection of the family, where the man and woman, husband and wife, who have grown and matured, then they can create a family which is, again, centered upon God, God's love, God's truth. And then thirdly, the third blessing, the perfection of dominion, where people, human beings, together with the creation, create an ideal world. And we can say in my lifetime, the world has definitely is more ideal in terms of the technology and the kind of the development of science. So we're getting closer and closer to an ideal world. So let's go back to my life. 70 years of life lessons. So there's a lot of time between 0 and 70, isn't there? A lot going on. So I'm going to break this down into 3 parts. First of all, the early years. I was born in 1953, and I met the Unification Church, as we called it then, in 1976. So I consider this was kind of the first part of my life. And the second part, the middle years, from 1976 until 1992. And that's when I came to Sweden. And then the later years, from 1992 until the present. So that's how I'm going to break down my life and what lessons have I learned at each stage of my life. And I could say that those early years were preparation. A preparation for me to join this movement, for God to guide me to find my life's path. And I would say the middle years were training in a life of faith, training of how to fulfill, my purpose in life. And thirdly, family life, because that's when I came to Sweden, then we started our family. So let's begin with the preparation, the early years. So the early years from 1953 to 1976. So this is a picture of my family, and so Tim is in the middle. My brother, 5 years older, John, and then my brother, 3 years older, Robert. So there we were, and this was kind of these early years. So I was born in Rugby, England. Rugby. You heard of the football game, rugby football? It was invented there, yes. In the school, rugby school. So I was born there because my mother came from Rugby and my father came from the north of England, from Newcastle. And when I was 5 years of age, we moved north to Sunderland. That's my football team. They're not doing as well as I hope, but still I support them through thick and thin. So that's where I grew up. And when I moved to Sunderland, I didn't sound like a person from Sunderland. Do you know how they speak? They have a strong accent. For example, I divna know what you're talking about, man. That means I don't know what you're talking about, my dear sir. Yeah, so I was a little different. I went to an all-boys school, and so people, I remember boys gathered around me, want to listen to me. I thought it was a bit funny the way I spoke. But I'm grateful because my voice, the vowels I picked up from Rugby are much clearer than why I man, I divna know what you're talking about. You know? So I went to school there. And then in 1971, I studied to be a drama teacher. I wanted to be an actor, of course, yes. But I asked my father, I started studying to be a teacher, and then I said to my father, I really don't want to be a teacher, I want to be an actor. And he said, better you continue, finish, otherwise you'll regret it. So because of that advice, that was a significant moment in my life, to become a teacher. Of course, I am still an actor, and I've had many opportunities, so I never lost the opportunity to act. And then I got my first teaching job in 1975. It was in the south of England, in Havant. Funny name, Havant. South, near Portsmouth. And then I used to visit London sometimes, and that is where I met. That's where I met the Unification Church. And I met this lady on the street, and she said, would you like to come to a lecture? So I went to a lecture, and my life changed. Or maybe not changed, it developed. It progressed. So what is interesting about my childhood at that time, if I go back to 1953 or before, because in 1944, that's 89 years ago, seems a long time ago, there was an Education Act. This was during the Second World War, when people were still suffering. And when people suffer, people turn more to God or question, the deeper reasons for life. So in the context of the Second World War, the government was concerned about the education of children. And so this is what the Education Act contained, to do with religion. There has been a very general wish, not confined to representatives of the churches, that religious education should be given a more defined place in the life and work of the schools, springing from the desire to revive the spiritual and personal values in our society and in our national tradition. The church, the family, the local community, and the teacher all have their part to play in imparting religious instruction to the young. Can you imagine? Wow. Can you imagine the government of that age? And it wasn't just the government, it said it's not confined to the churches, but like people wanting, there's a desire for like spiritual and personal values in our society. And so the church, the family, the local communities should work together, with the schools to impart religious instruction to the young. I benefited from this. So that's the foundation of my life. And it goes on to say, in order to emphasize the importance of the subject, provision will be made for the school day in all primary and secondary schools to begin with a corporate act of worship, except where this is impractical owing to the nature of the school premises, and for religious instruction to be given. At present, this is the practice in the great majority of schools, and this practice will receive statutory sanction and be universal. This was like the government is giving an order, this is the law. From now on, every school will begin, corporate means like collectively, act of worship. I think in Sweden, I think Ava told me that there was some kind of Bible studies, and then they changed it, they took it away. Yeah. And we know that in our lifetime, well, in England, that's taken away completely. It doesn't exist. But at the time, there was a general feeling that children need this. So I just emphasize two things. The school day in all primary and secondary schools to begin with a corporate act of worship. At present, this is the practice in the great majority of schools, and this practice will receive statutory sanction and be universal. So this is morning assembly. We called it morning assembly. I remember as a 7-year-old, maybe before that, 7-year-old, standing in the hall, and we used to sing Christian hymns. Yes? And then we would recite all together the Lord's Prayer. Do you know the Lord's Prayer? Yeah. Oh, you do? Do any of our younger people know the Lord's Prayer? Yes. How many of you know it off by heart? Very good. Yeah, good to see you. So I learned this off by heart, and it goes like this, just to remind you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Not only did I recite this in school, I came home and I practiced it because I wanted to learn it. And as I read it, as you say it, you feel it. Our Father who art in heaven, thy will be done. Forgive us our trespasses, the things we do wrong, as we forgive those. And deliver us from evil, the awareness of evil. So, if you're a 7 or 8 or 9 and you're saying this every day, you internalize it. It becomes part of you. It becomes normal. And also, of course, that was morning assembly, but then we would always get some message from the headmaster or a teacher, like a Bible story, moral story. And so, you know what this story is? The parable of the Good Samaritan, yes, because Jesus was asked, who's my neighbor? And he's actually helping his enemy. He's loving his enemy. And so these words, for example, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. I remember saying this, if you put God first, everything will work out. And then, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. This is going into my head, into my heart. Whatever you do to others, and that's what you want them to do to you. And if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Yeah. Anything is possible. I believe it. Yes. Jesus said that, so I believe it. And then, of course, what about the 10 Commandments? How many of you know the 10 Commandments? Do you remember them? Did you learn them? Yeah. Well, just to refresh your memory, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord in vain. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. So those 4 you could say about the first blessing, about our relationship to God. And the others are more to do with relationships with others. Honor your father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet. In other words, you should not desire to have something that doesn't belong to you, that, jealous of other people. So again, if you hear this when you're a child of 7, 8, or 9, it goes in. It stays in you. It's part of you. It's like a moral compass. It's teaching you what is right and what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, and how to live. And what did Jesus say? Jesus actually gave 2 commandments. Do you know those 2 commandments? I see some nodding of your heads. So again, to remind you, first of all, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. First blessing. And then, love your neighbor as yourself. Second blessing. So this was the foundation of my life. So I'm so lucky. I really am. I didn't have to kind of... my parents believed in God. My father was from the Church of England. My mother was a Baptist. But we never really went to church. We for a short time, but my father thought it was a bit stuffy. So, so they never pushed me. But within myself, I always remember feeling, one day I want to go to church by myself, because that desire was planted within me. But what else was unique about my life? And that is acting. This was a significant part of my life. And so here I am. I don't know how old I was. This is a story called The Wind in the Willows, or Toad of Toad Hall. And I am dressed up as the badger. And I don't know how old I was. Maybe I was about 12, 13, 14. And then here's another picture of me. I used to go to a youth theatre. And there I was a tramp. This was the insect play. And so I really loved drama. Why did I love drama? It, you can be someone else. You're not bound. And also, when you act, it's like I felt free. As I was growing up, you know how it is to be a teenager? You become very self-conscious. But when I was acting, it was the complete opposite. I felt really free. I felt liberated. Also, with acting, it develops your confidence to stand in front of people. It develops your ability to speak. It's also about working as a team and cooperating. It's about striving for excellence. And so much laughter, so much creativity. So if you were to give me a topic now, I could actually improvise. If I said, okay, there's a park bench, and I'm sitting on a park bench, and then someone comes along, I could start a conversation. I think all this training of improvisation, because we were given like a little topic, go away in a group of 3 or 4, and in 10 minutes come back and present, a little play. I could do it. So it gave me a lot of confidence that anything is possible. And I suppose more than anything, it gives a sense of joy. And that's why I wanted to be an actor, because why are we alive? We want to feel joy, don't we? That's what the 3 blessings are about. We want to feel joy. So this was significant. So if I then look at the life lessons from those first 23 years of my life, to summarize, I would say, first of all, I had an awareness of God's presence by going to morning assembly every day, reciting the Lord's Prayer, hearing Bible stories. Then God was real. I just felt God was with me. I just felt that God created this world. God created it for a purpose. I was aware of that. That seed was planted. And then it gave me a moral compass within, kind of a clarity about what is, the direction to go in life, how to live my life. Because I had all these words and all these stories to guide me. And thirdly, the joy of acting. Joy. If you can find your passion, if you can find something you really love to do, that's why God created us, This is the third blessing. To experience joy through our creativity, through pursuing our passion, through doing something we really love to do. God wants us to feel joy. And God gave me the gift of acting. But actually, I think all of us can act. Yes, all of us. Actually, my wife is a very good actress. Sometimes we do some funny things together, and I think we should stand up here and do a little sketch. Actually, the sketch I thought of is, it's like, we happen to meet, And we feel attracted towards each other, and we start asking each other questions. And oh, and where are you from? And it's like we start to laugh because we know each other. We are husband and wife. But let's pretend that we weren't husband and wife, and you create a little sketch. Some of the time. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, what about the middle years, the training? This is from the time I joined the Unification Church. So here's a picture from 1977 from Bristol. I joined in 1976. And there I am on the right-hand side with looking very happy. I think we had a celebration day. In that picture, there are people from many different nationalities. So the young lady to the left, she's from Finland, and then the young man at the bottom right-hand corner, I think he's from Germany, and then the young man standing next to me, he's from America, and to his right, that's a French man, and I think underneath him, I think is another German, and then next to him is a Englishman, and it's sitting in the middle. He was kind of our center leader. We lived like brothers and sisters, like a family. So this is training in life, And one of the rules of our beliefs is that purity before marriage. Of course, the second blessing to create a family. This is God's desire for all of us. But the training was that we lived as brothers and sisters in the same home. But we treat each other as brothers and sisters. We don't have, romantic relationships, because that's completely against the understanding we have. And so what did I do? I think many of us in the beginning, we went fundraising. We're on fundraising teams. And here we are selling pot plants. And so we got up there very early in the morning, and all day long we were out there. So I would like to kind of just list some of the things we did. So as I said, I joined in 1976. And I joined very quickly. Again, because I had this foundation of understanding, and I actually wanted to go to some church, and I was searching. When I heard the divine principle, it all made sense. It all clicked. Because I had the Christian foundation, but I wasn't bound by any specific doctrine. It was more, I was kind of open and wanting to know more. And so I suppose for about 3 years I was kind of traveling around the country in a kind of a van with maybe 4 or 5 members, and we would I'd go to Scotland and all over England, north, south, east, west. And to do this, I mean, I've never done this in my life, You go to a shop and you ask, would you like to buy a pot plant? You go to a factory, you go to a business, you go to a pub. It's like you go to all kinds of people. What a training that is in life, to expand your mind. Yeah, I wasn't really an alcoholic or a drinker, but I went to many pubs selling roses or selling pot plants or selling Christmas cards. I mean, if I look back, it's amazing that this is about developing your character, the first blessing, to be able to meet all kinds of meeting the whole world, meeting people who are friendly and unfriendly, And also it's a test of your character, because you get rejected. People don't want to buy. People tell you to get out. Yeah. And then you have these wonderful experiences of very generous people. So for those of you amongst the audience who were like me, joined in your 20s or when you were young, you had similar experiences. It wasn't easy, but we did it together. And we did it with the belief that God is with us and that this is like a noble cause. We are going to change the world. So this was very educational, to say the least. And then, because I trained as a teacher, because I followed my father's advice, actually, at that time, we started a small school, like a village school, with our like our blessed children at that time. And I was there for about 4 years, living in the countryside, beautiful, picturesque place, and learning to, not just to teach, but to guide those children, to kind of be good children and to teach about God. So that was kind of a unique experience. And then I was blessed in 1982 to my wonderful wife, who is still here. And we're still here. So one of the central kind of understandings is the blessing. Yeah, the goal of all of us young members was the blessing. And what is incredible about this is that at that time, our father, our true father, he gathered members together from all over the world, and in this big hall, we were all sitting there, brothers on one side, sisters on the other, and then he would point to people to stand up, stand up. And then he brought people together, like to match them. Incredible. If I look back now, how on earth was this possible? But we believed and trusted that God somehow was working through him. And I remember hearing a story about some member who was spiritually open, and he saw like this light settling on people, like a ball of light, and that's so far they could see that. You two go together. You two go together. I remember how he said to us when we stood before him, he said in his broken English, "Good match." Good match. And I think we are a good match, yes. We are very different, yes. But I think that's how it's meant to be, yin and yang. Male and female are complete opposites, but they blend together. So I feel, these days, if you go to the blessing, basically it's a matter of, you have to look for yourself or through parents, suggesting or helping. So it's very different. And of course, we had mass weddings, so I was blessed with 6,000 other couples in Korea. I mean, it sounds bizarre now. Well, or maybe at that time it sounded bizarre, but now it's normal, kind of. But incredible. And then in 1985, I went to Oregon in the United States. Members were called, this is CAUSA. I can't remember the exact meaning of this word, but it was about visiting Christian ministers. We had you could say a version of the divine principle, which was alerting Christians to the dangers of communism. And so I lived in a motorhome with a Japanese brother and sister way out west in Oregon, in the state, in Pendleton, Oregon. It was like a small place, and Oregon's just north of California. No, that's right, California. So anyway, that was one thing about joining our movement, that if you put yourself in God's hands, you have many opportunities and many blessings in life. So, first of all, traveling all over the country in England and meeting all kinds of people and developing courage, that was really unique. And what a blessing, and what an opportunity. And then to receive this blessing, a marriage blessing. Incredible. I was a very shy person. I never had any sisters. My brother, who's 3 years old, he still is a single person. And of course, I hoped I would not continue a single person, but I was very shy. But actually, you join our movement, and it doesn't matter whether you're shy or not, that God will find somebody for you. It's amazing, yes? And then traveling in America, living in a motorhome and traveling and meeting Christian ministers, and it's just amazing, the opportunities. And then in 1986, I studied in England. I have a Bachelor of Education degree, Bachelor of Education. But at the Unification Theological Seminary, which was founded by our founder, we had professors from all different religions teaching us. So again, I was being exposed to other religions and other philosophies. And also, amongst the people who were studying, they were all members at that time, were from all over the world. What a rich environment to be able to talk with and make friends with and share time with young people from all over the world. We have the same understanding of life, but still so rich. And to have all of these professors who respected our movement and were actually quite happy to share their understanding. And then at the end of that, I got a master's degree in religious education. There's the opportunity, there's the blessing. And then, in 1988, I returned to England, and so I joined my wife after many years apart. And that actually at that time, there was this emphasis about back to your hometown, your hometown, be like a messiah to your hometown, a tribal messiah is the term. And so then I could spend time. Both of us, for 3 months, we stayed with my parents. My parents were like 40 years older than me. So I was how old then? I was about 30. I was about 35. So they were already 75 years of age, and so we could help them very much. So this whole idea about, the first blessing, mature your character. Second blessing to do with the family. I could serve my parents. And actually, all through the years, whenever I could, I went home. And so I learned from the divine principle and from my way of life about the importance of respecting my own parents and giving something back to them. And I always remember my father saying, "You're a good son," and that was very gratifying when he was an older man. And also, what was amazing, that my parents also received the blessing when they were 80 years of age. Because my father, he trusted me. He saw that I'd made good choices. And so, for us, we want to bless everybody, yeah? So if you can bless your own parents, what a blessing. Actually, I can thank Per Nuleyen for that. Because my parents came to Sweden, we visited Per, and for me to say to my father, "Hey, you go to the blessing, it's a very good idea." But he was like the mediator, and he was very good at kind of convincing my father. And so he did that. It's amazing. And then, so in 1992, we moved to Sweden. I had this, it's not that I hear the voice of God. I think the way God works in my life, I just have a very strong feeling about something. And I felt I come here. And I came here. And did I make the right choice? Yes. So, what were the life lessons for that period of life from when I joined the Unification Church until I came here? I've kind of found three. First of all, I gained a clear purpose of life, very clear. The divine principle, it explains the three parts, the principles of creation. It explains the nature of God. God is not just a male, but both is male and female, yin and yang. And God is not just energy, but God is a parent, because God has personality, because we have personality. We're created in God's likeness and image. So if God was just intelligence, then we would just be intelligence. But also, in the divine principle, it explains about these three blessings. Live for the sake of others, mature your character, build an ideal family, create an ideal world. And also it teaches about the spiritual world. And so the blessing that we receive, we understand this is eternal. In the Christian marriage vows, we say, "Until death us do part." Well, I don't want to lose my wife. Of course, one day one of us will say goodbye, but we will meet again, and we will be together. Why not? Isn't this... We want eternal joy. We want eternal happiness. And also, it talks about how heaven is not just a place for individuals. Most religions just talk about your individual salvation. We talk about the family salvation or family restoration, and that the heaven is a place for families. Secondly, I learned to trust in God. If you put yourself in God's hands, God will give you many opportunities and many blessings. You'll go through challenges as well, but challenges are not bad. Even suffering is not bad. On Friday, Ava and I, we listened to Eckhart Tolle. He came to Stockholm. Eckhart Tolle, heard of him? Yeah, he's all about the power of now. And he talked about suffering is the portal to enlightenment. So suffering itself is not bad. But if you complain and say, my life, I'm suffering so much, then you lose it all. So because I trusted in God, many opportunities came my way. And then it's very important to be grateful, not to complain. So I think gratitude is like the bridge to love. Gratitude opens you up to blessings. So if you are grateful, even for hard times, I think Father once said, be grateful even when there's nothing to be grateful for. Because we have a tendency to complain. Yeah? So this was my third lesson, and I've tried to have that heart of gratitude. So now we come to the later years, family life. This time since 1992 until the present moment. And so this is a picture of our family a few years ago now. So there's my dear wife standing next to my son Joseph. He's now turned 30 just the other day. And on the bottom right-hand corner is my daughter Lisa, who's now 31. And then Philip, he's just turned 25. And then Jonas has just turned 22. And so what has happened in these later years in my life here? First of all, I moved to Sweden. And as I said, I felt very strongly to do this. And it was definitely the right thing to do. All the opportunities that came here, amazing. So I raised a family of 4 children. And then between 1992 and 2020, I was teaching in English schools. So, this stage of your life, you have the training as a single member and had no money of my own. You just trust God. And then this stage in your life where you have to settle down, establish a family, you have to kind of get a job, contribute to society. So this gave stability. And then also for many years, from 1992 to 2016, I was teaching Sunday school. And so this was my passion. This was my calling. And so when I came here, we had lots of very young children. What am I going to do with them? I can't put them in Sunday service, otherwise they'll fall asleep or they'll scream. So actually, Ava and I, in the beginning, she's a nursery teacher. And so we worked together in the beginning. And so for many years, I was doing this, and as you know, I created this curriculum, and you just keep going day by day, week by week, and so many inspirations came. Yeah, so that's what I did, and then so in 2020, 3 years ago, I retired from teaching, and then I became a grandfather. Now I am a grandfather of 2 children. We have Ginny, who's now 3, and Tess, who is 4 months old. Huh? There you go. I should have had a picture of them, but and what a blessing that is. Now I realize the circle is complete. So when we talk about the family, the blessing, the second blessing, actually, it's not complete until you become a grandparent. And then, since that time, I've been giving sermons and I've been giving lectures. So what have I learnt? What are my life lessons at this stage in my life? First of all, you have to accept each other. As I said, men and women, never mind myself and my wife, we're so different. Will you agree? Yes? Yes. Well, because it's the yin and the yang. But and of course, I'm not perfect. None of us are yet perfect, although sometimes we might feel we're perfect. But it's like, I think in the relationship, that's what it's very much about. To accept your differences. I look at life through my lens, and my wife looks at life through her lens. What a different background. I grew up in England with as I said, with kind of going to school in the morning, and it's all about, singing Christian hymns and so on. And then my parents, my father was a teacher, but we were not so rich. We had a council house. My father, he worked hard. My mother had some mental problems, and as brothers, we had problems. My oldest brother disappeared from home and never came back in his mid-20s. I don't know idea whether he's alive or dead. And so, and then my wife's background is very different from mine. And so also, if I'm from England, I look at life differently. And she's Swedish. And then our children are very different. And we have to respect them. And so I think this brings peace. Again, if you have this, this vertical, this kind of God-centered individual, God-centered family, then this is what brings us together. That we're all aspects of God, but I'm not better than anyone. You're not better than anyone. We're all God's children. But it's very easy to judge and to complain because it's in us, because of our limitations. But we're responsible for our lives, so we shouldn't complain. When things go wrong, or when there are difficulties, rather than say, you caused it, you're the problem. No, we're responsible. And our children are responsible for their own lives. So, of course, I would love that they were sitting here today listening to me saying, Dad, you're so smart. And, I want to be just like you. But what I learn is that each one of us is unique. Each of us have our own path. And we have to let our children go. We have to kind of not put pressure on them to be what we want them to be, but what does God want them to be? Yeah. And then I would say it takes a village to raise a child. So if I go back to my childhood, that village existed in the society through the 1944 Education Act to begin each day with a corporate act of worship, to get all these kind of Bible stories and prayers. It was amazing. Yes? So what about here in Sweden? And actually England today has become very secular. It's all been thrown out. So what do the children have? They have democracy, your rights. Well, that's to me, that's so kind of thin. There's no depth to it. Yeah? And but of course, here in our community, we're like a village. And so our children grew up amongst other blessed children in our community. So, we need the support. We need each other's support. We need society's support. But, so if I go over now review all of this, first of all, from my early years, I would say I gained an awareness of God's presence. I developed a moral compass within me, and I found the joy of acting. And acting is like you create anything. It gave me belief in anything is possible. And then in my middle years, I developed a clear purpose of life. I learned to trust in God, and I learned the importance of being grateful. And then in my later years, learning to accept each other in the family, that we are totally responsible for our lives, and it takes a village to raise a child. But that's 9 lessons. So what is the 10th? What is the 10th? Well, the 10th is we are not alone. We are not alone. Of course, I could say the first one, awareness of God's presence. But I realize throughout my life that I have been protected and guided in many, many ways. And I've learned, we have 2 guardian angels with us throughout our whole life. We have spirit guides who come and go. Some, I think one stays with us the whole life. They're there to support us. We have ancestors. We are not alone. So that is my conclusion. So I hope maybe something from that resonates with you. Maybe it makes you reflect upon your own life. What have you learned up to now? But this journey is not over. I feel I have so much more to learn. And I think in the spiritual world, when we talk about, okay, you go to heaven. Yes, so what are you going to do? I think we keep learning. And I think in the spirit world, we want to come back and guide our descendants. Because these 2 worlds are not meant to be separate. They're meant to interact. So, with those final words, I'd like to say to you, thank you for listening. Thank you.